The knock in the storm, the wind screamed outside. Snow fell hard on the quiet mountain. Everything was white, cold, and silent. Deep in the woods, far from any town, stood a small wooden cabin. Inside it, a man named Daniel sat alone by the fire. Daniel was not young anymore. His face had small scars. His hands were rough, shaped by years of work and war. He had once been a soldier. Now he lived alone, away from people. He liked the silence. He didn't talk much, he didn't laugh much, but he survived. Every day, he cut firewood, cooked, and repaired his tools. Life was simple. That night the snowstorm was worse than ever. The wind shook the windows. The fire crackled louder than usual. Daniel sipped hot coffee and checked his old radio. No signal. No surprise. Storms like this killed all connections. Then, it happened. A knock. A soft, weak knock on the wooden door. Daniel froze. No one ever came here. He hadn't seen another soul in weeks. Maybe it was just the wind. He waited. Again. Knock. Knock. It was real. Someone was out there. Daniel grabbed his flashlight and a small blade from the drawer. Slowly, he opened the door. Cold air rushed in like a wave. But what he saw next made him stop breathing for a moment. A tall figure collapsed at his feet. She was shaking, almost frozen. Her skin was not like any human skin. It was smooth and light blue, almost glowing. Her eyes were closed. Her lips, pale. She wore a thin, torn cloth, nothing to survive a snowstorm. Snow covered her silver-white hair. He knelt beside her. "Hey, can you hear me?" Her lips moved. Barely. Warmth, she whispered, then fainted. Daniel didn't think. He acted. He pulled her inside and shut the door. He placed her near the fire, wrapped her in blankets, and ran to boil water. Who was she? What was she? She didn't look human. Not fully. Her face was beautiful but strange. Sharp lines, glowing eyes, and small marks on her skin like faded tattoos. But she was real. She was alive. Daniel checked her pulse. Weak, but still there. Her fingers were ice cold. Her breathing was shallow. He rubbed her arms to help bring back warmth. He wrapped a thicker blanket around her shoulders and placed warm bottles near her sides. She stirred. Her eyes slowly opened. Golden eyes. She looked at him, afraid, confused. "You're safe," Daniel said quietly. "I won't hurt you." She didn't answer. She looked around the room, then stared at the fire like she had never seen it before. He handed her a cup of hot soup. Her hands shook so badly he had to help her hold it. She sipped slowly, and then looked at him again. Where?" "My cabin. Middle of nowhere." She blinked. "You, human?" "Yes, you're not." She didn't answer. Her eyes filled with tears. "I escaped," she whispered. "They would not let me choose. I ran, cold, fell." She started to shake again, not from cold, but fear. Daniel softened his voice. "You're safe now, no one's coming." She reached for his hand. "Please. Warmth. Just warmth." Daniel stared at her hand. It was small and trembling. Was this a trap? A trick? But her eyes told the truth. She was scared, alone. She had nothing, not even shoes. He nodded. "All right," he said. "You can stay." He sat closer. She leaned gently against him, like a child curling beside a fire for the first time. Outside, the wind screamed louder, but inside the cabin, for the first time in a long while, two beings shared warmth, and neither of them knew that this single moment would change everything. Morning came slowly. The storm had passed, but the world outside was still covered in thick white snow. Daniel opened the cabin door just a little. The cold air bit his face. Nothing but quiet trees and frozen silence. Inside, the strange woman was still sleeping by the fire. She hadn't moved much through the night. Her breathing was calm now, steady. Daniel had barely slept. He sat in a chair watching her closely. She didn't belong here. That much was clear. She didn't look like any human woman. Her skin was smooth and soft, pale blue like ice touched by moonlight. Her hair, still wet from melting snow, was silver white, long and messy. Her face was beautiful, but her bones were too sharp, her eyes too deep, too gold. And those strange marks on her skin, not wounds, not paint. More like symbols glowing faintly under the skin. Daniel had seen many things in war. He had seen humans do terrible things to each other. But he had never seen anything like her. When she finally opened her eyes, she blinked, slowly, and stared at the wooden ceiling like it was made of magic. "You are Daniel?" she asked softly. He looked up, surprised. "You speak English?" She nodded weakly. "Learned it from your signals, while hiding. Took time." Daniel moved closer and handed her a small piece of bread. "You need to eat," she took it carefully, as if unsure whether it was real. Then she looked around the room again. "This place smells like safety." Daniel gave a dry chuckle. First time anyone's ever said that. She ate in silence for a few minutes, then asked, "What is this place? This wood box?" "It's a cabin. Middle of nowhere. No neighbors, no roads, just me, the fire and the snow." She nodded, understanding slowly. Then she said the words that made Daniel pause. "I was not supposed to come here." He stared at her. "Then why did you?" She hesitated, eyes lowered. "I escaped my transport, broke the seal, fell from sky. I had no path and no tool and only one feeling." "What feeling?" She looked up. Her golden eyes shimmered. "That if I did not find a human, I would die." Daniel's jaw tightened. He felt something strange in his chest. Not fear, not anger, but curiosity mixed with concern. Why a human? Because your kind gives warmth, not just body, soul warmth. My kind does not. Her hands were shaking again, not from cold, but from memory. I was chosen, not asked, given away. I said no. So they marked me unfit and sent me to freeze. Daniel slowly sat down beside her. "You were punished because you didn't want to be with someone?" She nodded. "In my world, you do not choose. You are taken. But I wanted freedom." Daniel looked into the fire, thinking deeply. Sarah, if that was really her name, was not just some lost alien. She was a runaway, maybe even a rebel, and now she had landed at his doorstep during a storm, asking for warmth. Not just heat, but something deeper. "Why did you trust me?" Daniel asked. She looked at him softly. "Because you opened the door." That simple answer struck him harder than any weapon ever had. That day, Daniel gave her his thickest coat. She wore it like it was royal armor. He showed her how to use the kettle, how to stir the fire. She followed every move carefully, but she didn't speak much. Her eyes always watched the trees outside, like she expected someone to come, and when night fell again and the wind howled once more, she moved closer to Daniel as he sat by the fire. "Do you need the heat?" he asked. She shook her head. "I need the human." Daniel said nothing. But he didn't move away either. For the next 2 days, the snow didn't stop falling. Daniel and the alien woman, now known as Saraya, stayed inside the wooden cabin. It was quiet but not peaceful. Something felt heavy in the air, like secrets hiding behind her glowing eyes. Daniel noticed things. Sarah never turned her back to the window. She kept looking outside like she was waiting for something, or someone. She also did strange things. When Daniel gave her an extra blanket, she didn't wrap it around herself. Instead, she folded it carefully, touched it to her forehead, then placed it near the fire as if it were sacred. When she used a spoon, she stared at it like it was a piece of alien art. She sniffed Daniel's coat when she thought he wasn't looking. She even touched the wooden walls of the cabin like they were alive. To her, everything here was strange. Everything mattered. Daniel wasn't used to this. He was a quiet man. He liked routine. But now, with Sarah here, nothing was normal. One night, while he was chopping wood near the back shed, he heard soft singing. It wasn't in any language he knew. The sound floated through the snow like a dream. He walked closer and saw her standing, outside barefoot in the snow, looking up at the stars. "Sarah," he called out. "You'll freeze." She didn't answer. He rushed to her and grabbed her hand. Her skin was cold. Too cold. "What are you doing?" She looked at him, eyes full of sorrow. "Listening, hoping." "For what?" "For silence," she whispered. "If I hear silence, it means they are not near yet." Daniel pulled her inside. "You can't keep standing out there. You'll die." "I know," she said quietly. "But better to feel cold than to feel fear." That sentence didn't leave his mind all night. Later, while she warmed her feet near the fire, Daniel sat across from her. He decided to ask, "Why do you keep looking out the window?" Sarah didn't speak for a long time. Then she said, "Because the one who owns me will search." "Owns you?" Daniel's voice turned sharp. "You mean like a master?" She nodded. "In my world, I was born to be given, trained to obey. My skin was marked at birth, for beauty, not power. That makes me a prize." Daniel clenched his jaw. "And you ran away?" She nodded. "Yes. I ran before they could bind me to him. I found a small escape pod. I set it to crash somewhere cold, somewhere far. I wanted to disappear." Daniel sat back, his mind racing. Sarah wasn't just an alien. She was a stolen voice trying to take back her freedom. "You said warmth means more than heat to your kind," Daniel said. "What did you mean?" She looked at the fire. "In my culture, warmth is life. It's touch. It's trust. When we give warmth, we offer more than skin. We offer heart, soul, future. And you asked me for it?" She turned her eyes toward him. "Because you didn't shut the door." Daniel didn't know what to say. He had opened the door on instinct, but now it felt like he had opened something much bigger. A new path, a bond, a responsibility. That night, Sarah didn't sleep alone. Not because she asked, but because Daniel sat beside her by the fire and didn't move away. They didn't speak. She simply rested her head on his shoulder, her breath warm against his neck. For the first time in years, Daniel didn't feel alone, and for the first time in her life, Sarah didn't feel owned. She felt safe. But that peace was short-lived. The next morning, Daniel woke up to a strange sound, a high-pitched tone, distant but clear. It wasn't natural, not from the wind, not from any bird. Sarah's eyes flew open, her face turned pale. "They found me," she whispered. The sharp sound rang again. A high-pitched tone like a whistle, but not made by wind or any human tool. It came from the sky, faint but rising. Sarah stood completely still, her arms wrapped around herself. Her glowing eyes stared out the window without blinking. Daniel walked toward her. "What is that sound, some kind of signal?" She gave a small nod, her voice dry. "It's their search beacon. It calls out to my body. I can hear it, feel it. It was made for me." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Can they track you?" "Yes. If I respond, if I move toward it, it will guide them." "But you're not going to answer it, right?" She looked up at him. "Not unless you tell me to." That reply surprised him. "Why would I tell you to do that?" "Because—" She hesitated. "This is your home, not mine. If danger comes because of me, you may want me gone." Daniel stepped closer. His voice was calm but firm. "Listen, Sarah. I didn't pull you out of the snow just to throw you back to the wolves. You stay. You're safe here." Sarah's eyes watered. She covered her face for a moment. Then she whispered something in her own language. Soft, like a prayer. Then she asked, "May I ask you something human?" Daniel nodded. "Go ahead." She looked serious, nervous. "May I sit beside you meant for warmth?" Daniel chuckled. "You're already by the fire." She shook her head. Not fire warmth, human warmth. Daniel slowly understood. This wasn't about heat. It was something deeper, a cultural bond, a ritual maybe. "All right," he said softly. She sat beside him, carefully. Not too close, her hands in her lap, her body still slightly shivering. Then she reached out and gently touched his chest with her fingertips. "Your heart. I hear it. It beats slow. Safe." Daniel didn't move. He let her rest her hand there. She was studying him like a fragile map, one line at a time. "In my world," she explained slowly, "when we touch another's heart like this, we are saying, 'I choose you. I offer my life. You can keep me warm. Forever.'" Daniel's breath caught. He looked at her. This strange woman from a world of silence and rules, now sitting beside him in an old flannel coat, whispering words that felt older than the stars. "You don't even know me," he said, his voice a little shaky. Sarah smiled faintly. "You gave me soup. You gave me fire. You gave me the only thing I never had. Choice. That is enough." The room fell silent, except for the fire. Daniel placed his hand on hers. He didn't understand everything about her. He didn't know her past or her planet or what laws her people followed. But he knew this. She had come here to live, not to run anymore. Later that night, Daniel prepared the cabin for trouble. He locked the back doors. He turned off all lights. He even pulled out his old rifle from the dusty box under the floorboards. It still worked. Sarah helped in quiet ways. She didn't ask questions. She simply followed his lead. For a woman raised without choice, following someone she trusted was the only way she knew how to fight. As they sat in the quiet, she whispered, "Why are you doing this for me?" Daniel leaned back against the wall and looked at her. "Because when I looked out into that storm, I didn't see an alien. I saw someone who needed help, that's it." Sarah looked down at her hands, then said softly, "In my world, that would make you a fool." Daniel smirked. "Then it's a good thing I live on Earth." She laughed quietly for the first time. It was small, strange, but beautiful. But just as they began to relax, the sound returned, louder, closer. The sky above the cabin flashed faint red. Daniel stood up and grabbed the rifle. Sarah placed her hand on his arm. "Please," she whispered, "don't die for me." Daniel gave her a calm look. "I'm not planning to. But if they think they can take someone from my home without asking, they're about to learn something about humans." The sky was no longer quiet. A strange, low hum vibrated through the mountain air. It wasn't thunder, it wasn't wind. It was something alien, something cold and hunting. Daniel stepped outside the cabin, rifle in hand. The snow crunched beneath his boots. Overhead, through the thick clouds, a dim red light flashed once, twice, then vanished. Behind him, the cabin door creaked open. Sarah stood there, wrapped in the coat he gave her, but still looking fragile in the snow. Her silver hair moved with the wind. Her golden eyes were wide, filled with fear. "They're here," she whispered. Daniel scanned the woods. "What are they? Soldiers?" "No. Worse." She took a step forward. "Collectors." Daniel turned to face her. "What does that mean?" "They don't speak, they don't ask, they take." Her voice trembled. "Their mission is to return lost property. I'm that property." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Not anymore." Suddenly, a beam of red light shot down from above and scanned the cabin roof. It flickered once and disappeared. Daniel rushed back inside and closed the door. "They're marking the building," Sarah said. "They know I'm here." Daniel didn't waste time. He pulled out a bag from under the table and opened a secret compartment in the cabin floor. Inside was old gear: thermal goggles, an EMP flare, spare rounds, a flare pistol. "You prepared for this?" she asked. He shook his head. "I just don't like surprises." She stared at him, surprised by how calm he was. Daniel gave her a quick glance. "Can they be stopped?" "They are machines. Fast, cold. They don't bleed. But—" She hesitated. "They fear interference. Humans are not in their law systems. They weren't expecting one here." Daniel loaded the rifle. "Then let's give them a surprise." The forest outside grew darker, even though it was daytime. The snow reflected no light now, only shadows. Suddenly, a tall shape stepped between the trees. Then another. Both figures were smooth and silver, tall as the cabin roof, with glowing red slits for eyes. No faces, no mouths, just moving metal. Sarah backed away from the window. "They found me." Daniel peeked through a narrow slit in the wood. The machines were scanning the ground, slowly walking toward the door. Then a strange, echoing voice rang through the air. "Subject marked. Return now. No harm. No choice. Property order. 91 Gamma." Daniel looked at Sarah. "That you?" She nodded slowly. "That's my code." Another voice followed, same robotic tone. "Unauthorized human life form detected. Step away from target." Daniel raised the rifle. "Like hell I will." The moment he fired, chaos exploded. His bullet hit one of the collectors in the chest. It sparked but didn't fall. It stumbled, recalculated, and raised a glowing hand. A red pulse flew from its palm, blasting part of the cabin wall into splinters. Sarah screamed and ducked. Daniel rolled across the floor, pulled the EMP flare from his belt, and threw it toward the closest collector. Boom! The flare exploded in a flash of white-blue light. One collector fell, shaking, its systems glitching. The second machine marched forward, breaking through the door like it was paper, its arm stretched towards Sarah. Daniel grabbed a pipe and slammed it into the machine's head. The blow barely pushed it back. Sarah stood frozen, tears in her eyes. "They'll take me. They always take me." Daniel turned and yelled, "Not this time." He pulled the flare pistol and fired at the ceiling. A huge flame lit the sky, signaling for help, though he didn't know if anyone would see it. He stood between Sarah and the last collector. It raised its hand again for a final shot. Suddenly, a voice rang out. Sarah's voice, loud and powerful. "I reject the order. I am not property. I choose warmth." The machine paused. It scanned her, then scanned Daniel. Something flickered in its red eyes. "Unknown command, conflict detected." The machine turned its head slightly, and for a moment it stopped. Daniel didn't waste that second. He threw the last EMP charge under its legs and pulled Sarah down. Boom! The collector fell to the ground, twitching, then powered down. Silence returned. The cabin was half broken. Snow began to fall through the cracks. Smoke floated in the air. Saraya stood beside Daniel, breathing hard. You protected me," she said, her voice shaking. He looked at her and smiled. "You're not some code. You're a person. They just haven't figured that out yet." The cabin was quiet now, but it wasn't peace. The roof was broken. Smoke drifted from a hole where the fire used to be. One wall had collapsed from the alien blast. Cold wind poured in through every crack. And still, Daniel stood, breathing, hard, clothes torn, rifle in hand. Sarah sat near the back corner, her knees pulled to her chest. Her body shook, not from cold this time, but from memory. She had never fought back. She had never seen anyone else fight back for her. But Daniel, a lone human in a wooden cabin on a snowy mountain, had stood between her and a machine built to capture her. She looked up at him. "They will send more." Daniel nodded. "Let them." She crawled forward, eyes wide, You don't understand. The next ones will not ask. They won't scan. They will destroy everything just to make sure I'm dead rather than free. Daniel didn't flinch. Then we give them nothing to destroy. He picked up his old military bag and tossed it onto the table. It hit with a heavy thud. Inside were tools, parts, wires, things that hadn't seen use in years. Saraya watched as he began setting up strange devices around the cabin. "What are you doing?" "Building traps," he replied. "Tripwires, flash bombs, old tricks from the days when I fought in jungles and ruins. Machines hate unpredictability." "But this isn't your war," she whispered. He stopped, then looked at her. "It is now." For the next few hours, Daniel moved with sharp focus. He rewired broken heaters to overcharge and explode if triggered. He used Sarah's crashed pod, what was left of it, to create a signal scrambler. He placed mirrors in the snow, confusing any scanners. It was a mix of Earth tech and alien junk, but it might just work. Sarah followed him silently. Her steps were light, careful. She handed him tools, watched him connect wires, and memorized every movement. She had never seen someone build for her, not against her. At one point, she placed her hand over his. "Why are you doing this?" Daniel didn't answer right away. He just stared at the mountains. Then he said, "I fought in wars no one remembers. I lost friends for flags I stopped believing in. When the war ended, I thought I was done. But you..." He turned to her. "You didn't ask for war. You asked for warmth. That's not weakness. That's the most human thing I've heard in years." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "You say that word so easily," she whispered. "Human." Daniel smiled softly. "Then let's show them what it really means." That night they waited. The sky was too quiet. The wind had stopped. The trees stood frozen. Then, a rumble. A huge alien ship slowly descended over the mountain just above the tree line. It didn't roar. It hummed, cold and heavy. Blue light scanned the snow. A new kind of collector stepped out. It was different. Bigger, stronger, less machine, more hunter. Its body was armored with strange black plates. Its steps cracked the ice. No voice came this time, no warning, just a straight march toward the cabin. Sarah grabbed Daniel's arm. "This one doesn't care about taking me back. It will kill everything." Daniel stepped in front of her. "Then, we ended here." As the hunter reached the edge of the cabin, one of Daniel's tripwires snapped. Boom! An explosion of bright light burst into the air. The creature staggered but didn't fall. Daniel fired his rifle, 3 shots straight to the chest. The bullets hit but barely slowed it. Sarah screamed, "The head!" "The core is in the head." Daniel reloaded, calm and focused. "Got it." He waited. The hunter charged. Daniel waited longer. Just a few feet more. Then he dropped, slid across the floor, and fired upward as the creature stepped over him. Crack! The bullet hit its head, right between the glowing red eyes. The creature froze. Sparks danced across its face. Then it collapsed with a crash that shook the floor. Silence returned. Sarah rushed to Daniel and dropped beside him. "You're hurt," she said, touching his arm. He looked down. His shoulder was bleeding from a sharp piece of flying metal. "I've had worse," he said, wincing. Sarah tore a strip from her own clothing and wrapped it around his arm, hands shaking. "I thought I was born to serve," she said. "That I had no right to fight, no right to live free, but you showed me something else." Daniel looked at her, tired but smiling. "I didn't save you because you're alien," he said. "I saved you because you're worth it." Outside, the lights in the sky began to fade. No more machines came. Not that night. 3 days passed. The skies above the mountain returned to quiet gray. The red lights never came back. The last alien machine lay buried under a heavy sheet of snow, its cold metal broken and still. Inside the cabin, the fire burned again. The walls were damaged, but Daniel had begun repairs. He patched the holes with old wood and metal scraps from Sarah's crashed pod. It didn't look pretty, but it held back the cold. Sarah stood by the window, wearing his second-best flannel shirt. It was oversized on her, but she wore it proudly, like armor. Her silver hair was cleaner now, brushed and tied behind her head. The golden glow in her eyes had softened. She looked alive. Daniel stirred a pot of stew over the fire. He was quiet, like always, but there was something different in the way. He moved lighter, more certain, not like a man waiting to die anymore, like a man living again. Sarah turned to him. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel raised an eyebrow. "You're allowed," she smiled. "If I was born to belong to someone, does choosing you mean I still belong?" Daniel set down the spoon. He looked at her carefully. "No," he said, "because now it's your choice, and choice isn't ownership." She nodded slowly. "Then I choose to stay." Daniel looked at her for a moment, then gave a small nod. "Then stay." Later that evening they sat near the fire. No more machines, no more fear, just the crackling of wood and the quiet breath of safety. Sarah placed her hand on Daniel's arm. "My people will not come. Not after two collectors fall. They will mark this place as cursed, unworthy." Daniel chuckled. "Good. I like cursed places. Less visitors." Sarah tilted her head. "And what do you call this place?" He thought for a moment. "Home." She touched her chest. "Then may I be part of it?" Daniel looked at her carefully. "You already are." That night snow fell again, but it was softer this time. No storm, just flakes drifting like feathers across the window. Sarah lit a small candle and placed it on the windowsill. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "For someone?" She nodded. "For the old me, the one who thought she was born to serve." "And who are you now?" he asked. She leaned gently against his shoulder. "Someone who was rescued, not because she was beautiful or useful, but because she was seen." Daniel didn't say anything. He just rested his hand over hers. The silence between them was no longer empty. In the following days, they began building a new life together. Sarah helped gather wood. She learned to cook earth food, even though she burned the bread 3 times. She laughed when Daniel showed her how to fix tools, and once screamed when she saw a raccoon. She had never seen one before. Daniel found himself smiling more, talking more. He even found a way to power up an old radio again. No signal, but the music tape still worked. One night, they danced slowly to a human song in the dim light of the fire. She didn't know the steps, neither did he. But they moved together, clumsy, warm, happy. One morning, as the snow began to melt, Sarah stepped outside barefoot. She stood in the cold earth, looked up at the sky, and whispered something in her native tongue. Daniel stood behind her. "You praying?" "No," she said. "I'm saying goodbye." "To who?" "To the stars," she said softly. "I don't need them anymore." She turned and walked back into the cabin, into the warmth that wasn't just from the fire but from him. And for the first time in both their lives, they knew this truth. She was no longer just an alien. He was no longer just a man. They were no longer alone. They had found what so many had lost across the stars: home.